We are back on the Frisco RoughRiders pregame show, and joining us today is special guest Keith Comstock. Keith is the rehab pitching coordinator for the Rangers minor league farm system. Happy to have him with us on the program today. And of course, Keith, all the news in Rangerstown this season has been about all the injuries. Has it been a particularly busy season for you this year as rehab coordinator?
Yeah, it has. Not just up the big league level where they are spinning their heads as well, but in the minor leagues we've had our share of tolls so far. I know currently there's probably 16 guys in our rehab, and then we've sent out 26 already. So it's just one of those years. Every organization goes through it. You fight, you battle, and you continue on. You carry your sword wherever you go, and you just accept the fact that, baseball's, dealt you this hand this year, and you're going to deal with it.
You mentioned that you're a guy that likes to have a challenge. This is your 7th year with the Rangers organization and 6th in your current role. Is this the biggest challenge you've had of a season this year with all the injuries, would you say?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. Because they've come in all shapes and forms. It's just not an elbow or a shoulder. Like in Derek's case, it was his knee. Joe Ortiz with his foot. Then we've had minor leaguers come in for quads, wrists, hammates, you name it. So there's a variety going on there. So I can't really just say it's one particular injury that we're having to deal with. It's everything, top to bottom.
The headliner in the offseason, of course, was Derek Holland in that, freak knee injury he had, for lack of a better term. Who else has really taken up a lot of your time in Arizona this season?
Well, when you have everyone down there, there are some guys with priority, like Joe Ortiz. We're trying to get him ready. But as far as taking my time, I diversify. I make sure there's equal time for everyone, knowing dang well there's priority guys there, and they are going to get more of my time. But certainly those other guys aren't privy to that, because I'll take my time to see the Sal Mendez as well, a 40th round pick that we had last year who's developing really well. So we have guys down there that on the further points that are away from the big leagues, and the other guys that are going up there trying to help. And in Derek's case, that's a tough one because it's not his arm, and his arm was always in great shape, and we just had to try to get his knee to get caught up with that arm.
And so really, you're not just dealing with arm-related injuries. You have to have a good understanding of all the mechanics of a pitcher's body and know what situations to work, what body parts, I guess.
Absolutely. When it comes to pitching. Now, when it comes to the position players, I trust the trainers on every player, whether it be a pitcher or a position player, but I always try to get either Kenny Homeblow to come over and help me out with the position player, Donzel, any one of those position players that will come over and help me with the position player to make sure their technique isn't failing. If it's a weakness in my area, I make sure there's somebody with the strength around.
We're with Rangers rehab pitching coordinator Keith Comstock on the RoughRiders pregame show today. Mentioned Derek Holland a moment ago. What's your evaluation of his rehab progress up to this point?
Well, Derek's a beast when it comes to wanting to work out. I've read some of Wash's quotes, on the computer during the clips, and he hits it right on the head when he talks about Derek because he knows Derek really well. Derek's a bull. He wants to play. He wants to pitch. He wants to do everything he can. He just has a hard time understanding timetables. And so we try to put forth a timetable on Derek, whether he's looking great or not, or whether his arm's looking really good, which it was. But it's really hard because Derek is a horse we have to tell whoa to. And it's every coach's dream to have a horse you have to tell whoa as opposed to giddy up.
And what are the hurdles left for Derek Holland that he needs to clear before he can be back on any pitching mound competitively, not just Arlington, but say Frisco for a rehab stint?
I'm not sure yet because I haven't seen Derek in a bit or find out what he's doing. I know he's throwing simulateds, and I think he's doing a PFP session later on this week. I'm hoping after the All-Star break, because when it was all said and done in spring training, that was the timetable to begin with. And even though how good he works and how fast he works and how determined he might be, I think that timetable is coming up.
Keith Comstock joining us on the RoughRiders pregame show. Keith, we talked about this before we jumped on the air. No one wants to be in rehab as a player. How does that make your job more difficult?
Well, we don't go around promoting rehab. We certainly, when we do get those guys in rehab, there's some great people down there. Dale Gilbert, Napoleon Pichardo, you name it. NASCAR, Jeff Bodenheim. We just have guys down there that are almost psychology guys that as soon as they come in, we address the depression that they might be going through right away.
Mental aspect.
Oh, no question. Yeah, no question. Because so much happens to them when they know that they're in a sling now. They can't do anything. People are playing the game. People are passing them over, like we talked about earlier. It could be very depressing, and it's a day-to-day thing that you're always having to work to keep them motivated, to keep them eyes focused on what's forward and not what's behind. And it's a challenge for me every day to keep those guys because, when you have that many guys in there, and sometimes there's things that are going on back home that I can't control, but on the field, we try to get away from all that stuff and move forward.
Well, you're not in Frisco for a rehab situation in the strictest sense. It's because pitching coach Jeff Andrews is on his 4-day vacation right now. So is this a change of pace for you, a chance to work with some guys in a way that you otherwise wouldn't in a rehab situation?
No. This is Jeff's. I asked the pitchers before they go on the bullpens, what has Jeff been working with you? What do you want me to watch? And that's it. Now, I've had some of these guys come through my rehab. Okay. Probably half of them somewhere along the line, position players or pitchers. So I have a relationship already built in. But I like to see the progress. I loved watching Alex pitch today. Chichi just, his body has just made such a tremendous turnaround from when I saw it last year. And you just see that, the seriousness that he's taken with his job right now. The work he's done to get his body to look more of a pitcher's body and that of a construction worker that's got great stuff. He's just, it was just so good to see him and Eichhoff and these guys and what they're working with now and the fine-tuning that Jeff does with these guys because, we've both been in Double-A and we know that their phone call from the big leagues is here as well. And so our preparation for these guys and our work, they're part of the depth chart. They're a phone call away. So it's nice to see Jeff working on backdoor sliders here. It's nice to see these guys trying to backdoor their two-seamer. It's elevated big league stuff. And just a credit to Jeff that working with these guys on doing that.
You mentioned Chichi specifically. He's got that four-seam fastball that has some natural cut to it. As a former pitcher yourself, that's got to make you a little bit jealous.
Yeah. When I coordinated with the Angels, John Lackey was just like that. If you watch John Lackey's fastball, same natural cut to a four-seamer. And I tell him, there's so many things that a hitter can adjust to. He's going to adjust to our velo. He's going to cheat on our velo. And he's going to adjust our location by scooting in or scooting back. But he's never, ever going to adjust the movement. That's one thing that we have over hitters is movement. And so when you have that natural movement like that, just take it. Take it and let it work in the zone.
Keith Comstock is with us on the RoughRiders pregame show. The guy you got to see last night, Edouard Cabrera, it's his first year in the organization, but he's no stranger to the rehab process. He missed all of last year recovering from shoulder surgery. Especially as a left-handed pitcher yourself, what did you see out of him last night?
I think he does a nice job of getting the ball to go back and forth. Fastball change, fastball change, fastball change. Hitters have a hard time adjusting to that back and forth style. He throws his changeup behind in the counts. At this level, that will spin some people in the dirt. He's able to battle back from 3-0 counts and not be afraid to still challenge people with his fastball. He pitches in here, which I believe is becoming a lost art in baseball. Those things right there, you go in and out with your fastball. He does those things. He attacks the hitters with his stuff. He's still got 91 on it, so he's not afraid to sneak a fastball by people. His breaking ball is below average, but he uses it, gets it to have a purpose behind it. Certainly doesn't try to get beat with it in those situations. Whenever he's in a tough situation, he doesn't go to those pitches. So 26-year-old who's got a good idea of how to pitch, and he's done a lot of good things for this club right here. So I was really happy with what I saw.
And he was at 92 pitches after 6 innings. He goes out there for the 7th. What was there a thought process into deciding whether or not to send him out for the start of the 7th?
Well, there was a good thought process, and I'm glad you brought that up because Woody and I were both talking about it. He had 7 innings with 85 pitches the outing before, or 8 innings at 95 pitches. So we knew his history. We knew he also had extra days rest. But when Wilmer Font went down with a tender elbow, Jimmy Reyes got called up, and then we got a couple other guys that were limited on what they could do. This is a guy we felt that can go out there and give us 1 or 2 outs that we were trying to get away with, and he did. He got us an out. But we had Will Lamb going, but it was close ball game. In the back of your mind, that tie ball game, extra innings is always lurking as well. So that's why we sent out we've sent out our guy that we felt that can go out there and compete and get us some outs.
Keith, you've joined us on the pregame show before, and I know that you've been a player as a player in your career. You dealt with the yips before. How has that experience made you suited to working with players in a rehab stint?
Unfortunately, it's a terrible feeling. I got him in 1979. Was released because of him. And back then, that's what you did. If you couldn't throw it inside a turtle during BP, you got released. Here, the projects get put together, and in my coaching career, I've probably worked with 7 guys with the yips now. It's always good to have someone you can relate to. If I can get them real quick, if I can nip them in the bud, if one of our kids gets them for some reason and gets them in spring training, and we get to them like Kevin Faulkner did, Andrew Faulkner, who's in A-ball right now in in Myrtle Beach. He got him in spring training last year. I got a chance to grip with him real right away and deal with some issues with it and work through it, and he's fine and dandy now. So a lot of it is how fast we can get to it, to how fast we can conquer it.
One other interesting aspect of your career, in 1983, you were traded from the A's organization to the Detroit Tigers organization for $100 and a bag of baseballs. Mm-hmm. Not only that, you had to deliver the bag yourself when you arrived at Tigers camp. That's honestly sounds like the stuff of urban legend. How did that experience shape your career and who you are as a person today?
Oh, geez. By that time, I'd been released 3 times already, so I didn't care. I got released 10 times in my career. I was sold, traded, and released. When I was sold that year, I was sold for $100. And it's funny about it because it wasn't a bag of balls; it was a box of balls. It was a dozen, and they were the orange baseballs. Walt Jocketty and Dick Winsek were very good friends, and Dick wanted these orange baseballs as a collector's item. And Walt, being the gentleman and a great guy that Walt is, he sold me because I wasn't going anywhere with Oakland's organization. Detroit needed a left-hander. It turned my career around. I got to the big leagues because of this sell. And then Walt just asked me, can you bring these to Dick when you get there? Can you bring these to Dick? He's one of these. He explained it. So I never thought of it. But then when you get to the big leagues and you're looking for anecdotes and stories of yourself, it turned out I got sold for $100 and a bag of baseballs. Well, ultimately, that's what happened.
Well, that would have made me feel a little better about myself. At least it was a box of baseballs that was viewed as a collector's item.
And they weren't BP balls, right. It's not, I would have taken the BP balls, but Oakland back in those days, Charlie Finley, we did some weird-ass stuff back then, and these were one of those things. We were going to play with orange baseballs. We had our orange socks, orange hats. Why not orange baseballs at night? So when people hear that story, they kind of get it, but it's still fun. It's still fun to tell, and it can only happen to me.
Right. How did the $100 come into play? Was that to settle an old score or a bet or something like that?
I think at that time that was what my contract for a high A-ball guy was worth. They were just being they had to do official sell. They just couldn't give me Detroit. They had to do something that resembled some kind of transactions other than a bag of balls. So that's what it turned out to be, $100.
Well, Keith, it's a great anecdote nonetheless, and it's especially interesting that it really launched your career to the majors after that. That's a great story. Thanks so much for your time on the RoughRiders pregame show. It's great to have you in town, and have a great season the rest of the way.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Once again, that's Keith Comstock. We're back in a moment on the RoughRiders Baseball Network.